Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will be breaking down the latest monthly report for the Persistent Universe. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest channel member, Fantayan. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And before we begin, the TOBII Tracker 5 is on sale right now until the 3rd of July. It is 15% off. I highly recommend picking one up. Using that link in the description will get you that 15% off deal. Plus it does provide my channel with a direct kickback. So thank you so much in advance if you have done so already or if you plan to do so in the future. Now, this is a big report, which is somewhat commonplace these days. So get yourselves a drink, some snacks, and get settled in. Kicking off with the AI features team, they work towards consistent behaviors across different combat scenarios, ensuring that AI characters react in believable ways, no matter what situation they are in. The team also began by improving and unifying perception reactions, improving cover use in different scenarios, and making a holistic evaluation of all combat elements to ensure they work as intended. For the AI tech team, improvements were made to NPCs pushing trolleys and using elevators, alongside updates to behaviors for elevator use, plus smoother animations for when NPCs move away from trolleys, and improved functionality for NPCs parking trolleys were implemented as well. And I'm hoping that we will see much of this in 3.23.2 when all of these cargo updates come along, as having NPCs being able to load and unload our ships in the verse will be really helpful. It might not be ready for 3.23.2, but it doesn't sound like it's too far away. Now, the team also began work to allow NPCs to understand when cover is being destroyed, or when parts of a usable are being destroyed as well, which will prevent NPCs from attempting to find or use unsuitable cover. And this is certainly referring to things like the Maelstrom system or the physical damage system. It is going to be pretty insane when we have destructible environments. Seeing NPCs relocating when their cover is destroyed, having ground combined arms battles, especially against players, is going to be so much fun, just seeing stuff blowing up everywhere, having to keep on your toes to make sure you don't get caught by any of the shots. Now finally, for the AI tech team, for ship AI in particular, the team continued to improve and bug fix issues related to following splines and backstrafing. Now for the animation team, it says they focused work on numerous creatures, including the unreleased Kazi Grazer, which is the space cow, which we know is coming in 4.0, but I am very excited to see what other creatures are coming near term and obviously long term as well. They want creatures of all kinds, domesticated, docile, dangerous, all of the Ds. Anyway, moving on to the character art team, they completed the high poly phase for 2 specialist armors and continued updating the utility armor. A new heavy specialist armor began development as well. Now they also supported requirements for the character customizer, while the hair team started work on new hairstyles for future releases. Plus, progress was also made on new creatures. So they must be holding back on a lot of these new armor types. I know it was said quite a while ago that they will be working on many new armor options for all areas of the game going forwards, industrial, support, combat, and all sorts, giving us more reason to actually pick a specific armor for the job at hand, and collecting these different armor types to suit whatever it is you are planning to do in the verse on that day. Now for the ship art team, LOD0 was completed for the RSI Zeus Mark II, with the team delivering a significant amount of work to dramatically increase the detail in all areas of the ship. For example, it says lighting across the entire ship has been designed to bring out the volume and highlight details, while animation passes were done across all moving parts, with many receiving secondary motion to communicate a sense of weight. The next stage is a wear pass and completion of the ship's damage states, while material passes were also done to unify the look and feel of new RSI ships in the future. Now I think it was mentioned in a recent monthly report that they are using the Zeus to set a new precedence in the level of detail for all ships. So it'll be really interesting to see just how this ship looks in comparison to other ships. Not to mention they are heavily focused on RSI right now, so all the new RSI ships coming out should look pretty phenomenal, and hopefully they can go back over the older ships and bring them up to snuff as well. Now finally for the ship art team, it says 3 other ships entered the white box stage. No idea what these could be, but do get your guesses in the comments below. Now, for the core gameplay team, it says, while focusing on closing out tasks and bug fixing 3.2.3 and 3.2.3.1, another part of the team focused on the final touches for the cargo feature, while the majority of the team continued to work on gameplay features for Alpha 4.0 and beyond. Also, a significant amount of work on the multi-tool refactor planned for 4.0 was done, which will provide a more streamlined experience by putting the tool's primary attachment action on the left mouse button and secondary action on the right. Also, planning for the remaining multi-tool refactor work, such as an updated UI and battery consumption, was also completed. Now, there is a lot going on for the multi-tool, which as a tool we all use very often. Improving its usability will be much appreciated. Not to mention, getting the battery charge and drain aspect involved in it as well will give a lot more thought and planning when it comes to as and when we use the multi-tool and for what reason. So very happy to see this really important tool getting updated because it can be a bit finicky at times. Now for biome accumulation, the team completed further Squadron 42 porting work and scoped out how the feature will integrate into the weather system. Now for those unaware, the biome accumulation is pretty much as it sounds. It is the environment gathering on things like weapons, clothing, ships, and pretty much everything. And it will all make sense depending on the environment you're in, and also be applicable to buildings as well. Plus, it is nice to hear them mention the weather system. Now that the clouds and the cloud system is up to a pretty decent standard, I wouldn't be surprised if they are either already or expecting soon to start working on much more weather systems. Now, charge and drain also continued through pre-production and will now utilize the resource network, support multiplayer, and the ability to charge and drain distortion damage from ship components. Now, as mentioned with the multi-tool, this will certainly add a whole nother element to item handling and deciding on when and where to use each tool, plus how we counter distortion damage when the resource network is implemented. Not to mention how every ship and potentially planetside location or space station will have batteries as well that will generally be charged through the running or the operating of the item of the ship, but will still need to be a resource that you need to manage and will allow you to overclock or underclock depending on how much you have available to you. Now, quantum travel is currently being reviewed to assess any aspects that need to be made server meshing compatible beyond the issues observed during the tech preview tests. Now, the quantum travel updates was something that I hoped we would see come with 3.2.3, but clearly with it needing to be made compatible with server meshing, this sort of stuff is taking a little while, but the updated quantum travel effects and gameplay is something I'm very much looking forward to since we saw it at CitizenCon. Now, support for Arena Commander's engineering mode was provided to allow items to be repaired once they reach 0 health, and if anyone can confirm or deny whether we can actually repair components in the PU right now, could you let me know in the comments below, as I know it was possible in the PTU a while back, but I'm not sure if this has carried over to the persistent universe for the current patch. I don't believe it works, but I could be wrong. Now, locomotion improvements for NPCs performing sharp turns were completed, which they say will allow characters and creatures to switch direction more smoothly. Now, this is something I'm happy to see getting addressed. Seeing more believable and smoother animations for all NPCs, both human and creature, will be appreciated, but since the Copians and Marocs have come into the game, getting their animations a lot smoother and more natural will really help to enhance the fauna. Now, work required to adapt the inventory system to server meshing was scoped out, as it will require a rework of its backend to scale appropriately. So they're continuing to chip away at the server meshing conversion here. The initial version of jump drive failure events was implemented as well. So basically, when a ship's jump drive is disabled or damaged, the player will be forced out of the tunnel, which it says correctly aligns with the exit point in the destination star system. Plus, further improvements to the debugging tool for jump point gameplay was implemented as well. Now, it is going to be fascinating to see exactly how all of this jump point gameplay works, seeing what happens and where you end up when a jump fails, having to get repaired or await a rescue and so on. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing this unfold. Now for the engineering gameplay, the team implemented power pools, which allows the streamlined power management of grouped items like weapons and thrusters. The resource network was enabled by default in the main StarCitizen development branch, which ensures all teams can work with it and integrate their features or content with it too. Now this is great progress with the engineering systems, as now all the developers are using it internally. So it must be at a place where it's pretty much working well, and at this stage is usually where the other dev teams find other potential use cases to help expand and enhance such features. So we will see what comes of that. Now for transit, the team continued general release support for 3.2.3 and its upcoming feature updates like cargo and the personal hangars. Scope, technical and planning discussions concluded for the transit refactor, which is now in active development, and this isn't anything that is super exciting, it is more just getting it working for server meshing. Now estimates and scheduling were completed for the remaining radar and scanning tasks, including deliverable targets. Team members were also supporting the patch release, concluding their work, and moving on to supporting radar and scanning as well. Now really interesting to hear more about these radars and scanners and all the changes coming with them. Now I don't know what these changes consist of entirely, so more detail would be very welcomed here, but hopefully it will also mean exploration style gameplay can begin to expand, plus enhance all current gameplay like combat, mining, salvaging, maybe providing each ship with their own specific radar and scanner to suit their role. That would be really nice. Talking of scanning, it says work was done on the object of interest mechanic, which will allow designers to set up objects within the persistent universe and Squadron with various parameters and a special scan highlight. Also, a special material was applied when an object is occluded so that it shows one material when within line of sight and another when obstructed, with the team also adding a fading effect for highlighted objects based on distance. So I'm not entirely sure what all of this means, or more how it will translate into a gameplay scenario, but it does sound like they are fleshing out the scanning mechanic more and giving it more nuance. Again, I look forward to seeing exactly what these expansions and changes are, because the radars and scanners have been needing an update for a long time, and the signature system in it as a whole. Now, work was done on including organization information in FPS scan data, while new sound effects were added when attempting to ping while the ability is on cooldown. And that is something that we know is on the way, FPS scanning and using a ping to receive sort of relevant information about your proximity or your local area, all the while potentially exposing your presence. Now, the core gameplay pillar also completed checks between the PU and Squadron 42 streams, raising differences so that the team can continue to port features from the Squadron feature set to the PU. Now, as it sounds, they are aiming to achieve, I suppose, parity between each game, which will put the development of the PU at a very good standpoint, as it'll be much easier to handle when both are the same. Plus, it should put the PU at a much more playable standard as Squadron 42 gets closer and closer to release, but of course with the persistent universe, this will be developed much further in terms of new gameplay and features than Squadron, but the base underlying structure should be at a very good standard when this is achieved. Now finally, for radars and scanners, the team activated the FPS radar and other experimental radar features across Arena Commander, with the systems being reassessed closer to release of Alpha 4.0 for a potential preview via Arena Commander. So it sounds like they are ready to show us the latest changes and updates to scanning and radars, but they will do so likely through Arena Commander's game modes, maybe an experimental mode, to get players to test all of the new changes in a controlled environment. Now, initial work was completed on the first pass of a new EVA-only map for an FPS Arena Commander game mode, with playtests scheduled for the coming weeks, which sounds pretty cool. The team also began marking up Arena Commander locations with the room system so they are compatible with radars. And it says the Good Doctor was completed, with the rest expected to finish in the coming weeks. Anyway, 2 new straight teams were created to focus on 2 new modes, one of which is an FPS Horde mode. Finally, this is great news. I hope that we actually have a horde mode using those outbuildings found at the distribution centers with the turrets on, where hordes of Copian attack. That would be a dream. Now it also says for the FPS horde mode, the game mode and initial setup were completed alongside the deliverable scope discussion and task breakdown. The primary goal of this mode is to provide developers with a fast, easy and reliable way to iterate on and develop the spawn closets, creature and human AI, and FPS radar. And the team will be assessing the game mode closer to Alpha 4.0 on the feasibility of introducing it as a publicly playable experimental mode. Now I really love the sound of this, especially as it's being used to test a lot of things. The spawn closets, which are how AI of all types can come in and out of a game, but also using creatures and human AI. So we can have hordes of humans, we can have hordes of creatures, and then also tying that in with the FPS radar. Lots of systems are being heavily developed here, and making it a game mode, a horde mode at that, will be a very fun way to test it all. Now the team also worked on several quality of life initiatives for developers, including new vehicle control manager debugging. Plus, the team made further progress on the mission system refactor, including the implementation of the contract generator, the querying of active and completed missions from the mission service, and a rework of the mission sharing flow as well. They also updated mission entities to support streaming, and refactored the mission system to use both the mission broker and contract template systems as well. The data structure required to refactor missions was provided to the mission design and content teams as well. Now, a lot of work going on here for the mission system, as we will hear further, and the refactor will hopefully allow for a much more robust and streamlined expansion of all missions going forwards, providing more consistent content for players to get on with, while also making it a lot more interesting and diverse as well. Now, further support was given to mission design for the updated delivery contract system that interacts with the upcoming freight elevators as well. And talking of freight elevators, gameplay features continue to close them out, along with storage access kiosks, or item banks as they're known, instanced and personal hangars, and commodity trading updates. The UI flow is currently being updated to provide a more streamlined experience when managing the warehouse inventory and moving items via the freight elevator, and items like weapons, armor, and furniture can now be brought up as well. So really nice to hear that there is also going to be a commodity trading update alongside these other features, as not only does 323.2 bring a huge update and improvements to the cargo hauling profession, it also sounds like they are including more updates to commodity trading, likely by way of the economy as well. Not to mention how cool it's going to be just calling up pieces of furniture and placing them where you want in your hangar, making it your own. Apparently there will be furniture to buy, different shops offering different options, and I suppose having to maybe transport it from one location to your hangar would be kind of fun. Now finally, for the core gameplay pillar, stacks of items can now be split in the storage access and freight elevator kiosk UI, and filters for item categories were implemented as well. So much to look forward to with this patch. It is going to be crazy. Now, for the economy team, they documented the effort versus reward algorithm, and this will enable the team to determine the technicalities of implementing the mission system refactor, and once live, mission rewards will be based on time and difficulty to complete. And part of this involved establishing sensible time estimates for hauling missions and finalizing the reward balance for the Copian and Morocco missions. Now, this is such a major change that is coming along. Having missions and their payouts make sense to what you are doing means those who want to take risks can do so, potentially earning more but putting themselves in more danger, while those who don't want to take risks and stick to the safer areas can just take the lesser dangerous missions, kind of giving more for everybody to enjoy and scaling it accordingly. Not to mention, with Reputation as well, giving a true fun grind to the persistent universe, which I know they say having a fun grind is what is important. Now finally, for the economy team, a design for the refactor of the shop system is underway that will provide more flexibility for trading commodities and item shopping. Progress was also made on an algorithm to determine the base price for commodities as well. And again, much more work going on for commodity trading, which is certainly very needed. So those of you who don't want to work for a company, for example, and haul their goods, you can play that risk-reward game of trading. Now, up next we have the Interactables team, who worked on a liquid carrying cargo container with all sizes moving from white box to final, and we will begin to see many more container types make their way out, of which we are already seeing with the RMC boxes, but having containers make sense visually to what is supposed to be inside is going to be nice. Also, a destructible generator was made for search and destroy missions, with the devs currently working it up to final, with separate pieces that will detach upon destruction. Now, I presume that these generator assets, although being specifically designed for this mission, will likely be used as the actual assets when the resource network is applied to places like planetside locations as well, and even player bases, I would suspect. So any location can lose power, be that part of a mission, or just dynamically based on what other players are doing, or even environmental damage eventually as well. Now, for the lighting team, they spent time finalizing work on instanced hangars, and once complete, they kicked off new content for Alpha 4.0, while also beginning the look dev stage on a new cave archetype. So if I was to guess, I would say that this cave archetype is likely to be the icy caves, as I think there was a sneak peek recently which showed off the redone rocky caves. We also have the sandy caves. Icy caves or humid caves were also ones that were yet to be done from years back, we're talking. But these icy caves will be found in places like Lyria, Microtech, and again, make sense to the environment or the celestial body that they're found on, or the biome that they're found in. Now, the locations team in May fixed bugs for the instanced hangars before moving on to Alpha 4.0 mandates, including crafting the remaining stations for Pyro. Plus, the organics team continued iterating on new biomes. So hopefully the next time we see the Pyro playground come along, it will be the entirety of the system, which would be pretty phenomenal to see, especially as we only saw a small part of Pyro when we were playing it. But also, as good as the planets look right now, they are not done by any means, and will continue to keep pushing the visuals and introduce new biomes, some known, some alien, which will just help to expand the whole system in which they use to create planets. Now, for the mission design team, they continued working on cargo missions, specifically polishing the abandon flow, which is used when a player decides they are no longer wanting to play the mission. And for example, if the player has already picked up the cargo, the contract will then give them an allotted time to deliver it to a closer location and take less of a reputation hit. And if the player then doesn't deliver the cargo in the time frame, it will be marked as stolen, and I assume you will get a crime stat and likely get a very big reputation hit. So very happy to hear that they are catering for these kinds of aspects, as there is a lot to determine, a lot of edge cases with this kind of thing. And having a way of backing out of the contract without getting into too much trouble because you can't fulfill the required, objectives, but still having a deterrent to not do so is not an easy thing to work out. And this sounds like a pretty good solution versus just giving it up. Now, planning was also done for the mission system refactor, which is required for server meshing, and this will also bring the processes and pipelines used by the team up to date to ensure everything is aligned with the current standards. Also, future content plans are underway, with some actively being built. Mission design also aligned with tech design on their deliverables to see if more of their upcoming gameplay can be utilized. And finally, for the team, Pyro-based repair missions are being actively designed, which involves replacing components, containing radiation, and power management via charge and drain, which sounds very cool. Not just for the sake of these types of missions, which will be great, especially using ships like the Aegis Vulcan, but for our own ships, having to deal with these dangerous liquids, dangerous gases and radiation and other dangers on board while repairing or salvaging will really take any ship-based gameplay to a whole new level. Not to mention managing systems like components and life support or gravity. I can just imagine when all of these systems are in, exploring wrecks are going to be a whole game in itself. Now, moving on to the narrative team, they spent time scoping out their responsibilities for StarCitizen 1.0, which is what they call the release candidate or sort of viable release product. they will continue to develop from there on. But Narrative are looking into taking a larger role in the oversight and maintenance of the social AI in the universe, which includes reviewing and adjusting existing civilian behaviours so the personalities of the various locations and landing zones come through. The team are also prototyping new behaviour types that will appear throughout some upcoming locations, as well as previously established ones. And this, they say, led to initiatives to develop vertical slices of social spaces to test out a variety of larger scale mechanics, such as day-night schedules, updates to the vendor and bartender behaviours, and some mission providers in a contained space to make sure they're providing the desired content before expanding. Now personally, I would love to see these vertical slices. It's always fascinated me in games when they try to create these sort of realistic day-night schedules and cycles for NPCs, as I love to follow NPCs and just see what they do, see them eating, sleeping, working, and so on. Not in a weird way, but I do feel that Cloud Imperium will really expand on this type of system to help sell that believability of their NPC population in all areas of the game, from cities, settlements, individual homesteaders, and even fauna, of course. Now, as part of StarCitizen 1.0 development, further work was done on the location stories for major landing zones, with the team working with design to tailor the story to the gameplay. And it says that these missions will provide exciting opportunities for players to embark on adventures that embellish local storylines, which really sounds amazing. Selling that feeling of history and personality of each location. Having missions not just making sense to the locations, but actually having proper missions at major landing zones will be great in itself. Hopefully on all scales as well, from small missions requiring players to remain on foot and explore, up to larger scale missions requiring, specific style ships. Now, Chris Roberts did say quite a while back that they want planet-side locations to offer hours worth of gameplay, so players won't feel the need to go anywhere to find certain missions, let alone even going off-world. Hopefully this is the start of that. Great for those no-ship 0 to 0 stars. And finally, for the narrative team, they continue to support upcoming patches by providing narrative content for some of the upcoming mission modules, providing additional in-fiction names and descriptions to items, and working with the core gameplay teams to further mechanics. Now, for the online technology team, they focused on wrapping up the social services backend refactor, which they say will improve the performance and scalability of social features including chat, friends, and groups. It will also allow the service to handle more concurrent users and requires and helps the team to add new features more easily in the future. The team also spent a lot of time helping to stabilize Alpha 3.2.3 by triaging issues and bug fixing. And finally, for the team, they began working on potential Alpha 4.0 release features, such as the mission system refactor, the marker system refactor, and the player trade feature in support of server meshing. Now, the player trading feature is so important for the expansion of the persistent universe, providing a lot more freedom for what players can do. Already, myself and many others are trying to trade with each other in the verse as we bump into each other randomly, offering items that we've looted for sale, and it is great fun. It's very clunky, not very streamlined, so having a proper method will be wonderful. Now, next up we have the R&D team. For volumetric cloud rendering, stochastic Catmull ROM texture filtering was implemented for the new half-res render mode upscaler. The number of ray marching steps now also scales with scene depth to improve performance in scenes with near-distance occludes. Plus, progress continued on the temporal render mode. All confidence metrics and transmittance filtering received further tweaks and improvements, and a first draft of the code was submitted for internal use. No idea what any of that means, but the clouds are looking much better, and here's hoping we start to see proper weather systems come along. Anyway, moving on to the tech design team, they supported multiple areas of development for upcoming patch releases, including resolving bugs related to creatures, interactables, cargo hangars and item banks, weapons and performance issues. They were also involved in initiatives for gameplay-related systems and internal tools and workflows. For example, they added the ability for mission designers to change AI pilot skill levels depending on the mission, affecting their accuracy, Plus, they outlined design requirements for the transit system refactor and code syncing for the design team. Whew, quite a big job there then. The team also spent time setting up new test levels, harvestables, and the spawning system for upcoming creatures, plus they began work on interaction improvements for kiosk screens. Work also continued on a new location distribution tool, which involved designing the initial rule set for location placements and improvements to workflow and aligning with other teams on the next steps. And finally, progress was made on the internal scripting tools, with the team syncing with coders on slow workflows to help designers improve the user experience. Now, for the Montreal UI team, they worked on a variety of mandates, including tasks for cargo, ensuring all visual elements were polished and any bugs were thoroughly fixed. I like the sound of bugs being thoroughly fixed. They also collaborated closely with the core gameplay pillar on the resource network and jump points. And for the UI team in the UK, they continued updating the HUDs across multiple ships to improve their functionality and aesthetics. Hopefully, we are not waiting too long to see the new manufacturer-specific HUDs and MFDs come along, as that will certainly add a lot more identity to each ship. Not to mention the new functionality or the gameplay functionality that it brings. Now next we have the visual effects team, who completed effect passes on several new vehicles, including thruster and damage. Work also began on jump point effects, which have existed as prototypes for some time now. I think we've seen a few of these over the course of a few years, but the team is now focused on getting these effects fully functional, working closely with the VFX programmers and the feature teams. And finally, we have the web platform team's entry for this month, saying that the system services team planned and tested the platform's automated scaling schedule to handle the expected traffic waves, with the team saying, Invictus marked the first major traffic event since we transitioned our infrastructure to Kubernetes, not sure what it is, but they said it was a great success and it provided an excellent opportunity to enhance our platform's observability and alerting systems. And despite hitting record traffic levels during the event, we experienced no performance issues, which is definitely good news. I had no idea that they changed their web's infrastructure, but happy to hear that after doing so, it is working well. Now, there has also been quite a few launcher updates with the new 2.0.1 version, which I believe is released very recently, or was released maybe yesterday or the day before, and the team have been working hard to address issues with authentication, error handling, and other bugs that were reported on the 2.0.0 launcher, making it more stable and reliable for users. So there you go. That was the Monster Monthly Report for the Persistent Universe. Oh my lord, we are 40 minutes into this script. Thankfully, it won't be 40 minutes for you. It won't be far off, though. So much is going on for the Persistent Universe, mostly unseen at this time. So chances are, if 3.2.3 and its subsequent patches are anything to go by, this year we'll see many more features rolling into the PU, some being much needed updates to existing systems, but also many being brand new systems to expand on gameplay and features. And I feel that once 3.2.3.2 is in our hands with the elevators, hangars, cargo updates and so on, it'll continue to expand greatly. We are just patiently waiting for that one. But with that said, if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. We are fast approaching 70,000, so thank you all so much. Come and follow me over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome over there. Irrespective of whether you are new or a veteran to the game, if you have any questions, by all means ask away. It is the best time to find me, to ask me, as I am live. I cannot hide. Hit the like button, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys, so thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.